Welcome to today's edition of the Statler Financial Radio Show. Your financial security is our business. Have a question for the team? Call today, 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
No matter what your retirement plan looks like, if you're like most people, it's very likely that Social Security is an important part of it. But do you feel confident about Social Security going into retirement? Do you even think that you'll be able to rely on it? Well, according to a new survey, most Americans don't. Welcome, everyone, to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler, the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. He's here with me to explain the findings of that survey, what he thinks about the future of Social Security, and strategies for you to consider when fitting this benefit into your overall retirement plan. Phillip, welcome to the show. How are you feeling today?
Hey, Danielle, it's good to be here. It's an interesting topic when we start talking about Social Security for sure. And so let's just dive in and see what we can figure out here about what people think about Social Security.
Yeah, I agree, Phillip. Let's start with this poll. I mentioned earlier that no matter what your retirement plan looks like, most people are not really thinking about or feel confident about adding Social Security into their overall plan. What can you tell us about this poll?
Well, there was a poll done nationwide. Retirement Institute surveyed Americans on retirement issues. Specifically, they looked at Social Security, and here's what they found. The survey found that nearly 3/4, 72% of adults worry that the Social Security system will run out of funds in their lifetime. They had another concern, particularly among millennials, 79%, and then Gen Xers, 77%. So everybody, boomers and Gen Zs, not as much, but still 66% of them were really concerned that we might run out of money before or during their period of time of drawing Social Security. So alarmingly, though, almost 1 in 4, almost 25%, 23% believe they will not get a dime of Social Security benefits that they've earned. That's some pessimism out there.
Right. And you said almost 1 in 4 believe they will not get a dime. That sounds very alarming, like you mentioned. And I'm curious, Phillip, did you find, did the survey find anything about how well most Americans understand Social Security? I think that's another key component that we should unpack here a little bit. What did the survey say about if anyone is clear or understands how Social Security works?
Well, they did. They did ask some of those questions. And what they found was that more than half of the respondents, 51%, do not know ways to help maximize their Social Security benefit based on the answers they gave. And then 33% were unaware or uncertain, rather, when they may qualify for full retirement benefits. You know, there's that distinction, right, between getting Social Security early, getting it at full retirement age, and then waiting until you're 70 before you start taking Social Security. So that tells me that a lot of folks don't understand how Social Security works and when is the best time for them to take it. And that's, Danielle, why I developed the core retirement design, to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. And we look at 3 key aspects in that process. One is we look at risk in their portfolio, making sure that the amount of risk they have truly lines up with the amount of risk they should have. Second, we look at taxes. Are they going to pay the least amount of taxes possible in retirement? And what can they do to make sure that they pay the least amount of taxes possible over their lifetime? And then lastly, and probably one of the more important things, especially when we're talking about Social Security, is an income plan. We put together an income plan looking at their assets that they've accumulated, looking at a pension they may have or Social Security they get, and we build a total plan for them so they know where their income is going to come from. That's our core retirement design. Folks, it's easy to start that process. It's a 30-minute phone call, you and I discussing where you are, where you need to be, and how far you've gotten down the path to get there. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to get started on your core retirement analysis. Again, that number is 863-877-1188.
Again, like Phillip said, don't hesitate to call that number, 863-877-1188. If you have questions about your own retirement plan, this is an opportunity for you to sit down with a financial advisor and walk through any questions that you may have. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. So today we're discussing Social Security as an important retirement benefit. So Phillip, I'm curious, in your opinion, is there a reason to be concerned about the future of Social Security?
Well, let's face it, Danielle, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know the future.
Right.
I don't have a crystal ball in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's impossible to really know what the future holds. As you're aware, it's just tough. However, there are some things that we can know based on where we are today. Professionals say that fears of the program going away completely are likely overblown. I mean, let's face it. There are so many people that rely on that program that it would be disastrous if they just took it all away. However, there are very well could be some changes to the program, including benefit amounts, ages that you can access your benefit, and more. It's impossible really to know completely what the political landscape, political, that can really change on a dime. And so we don't know what that political landscape is going to be. And so, we don't know how that's going to affect Social Security, especially if you're 5 to 10 years away from retirement. Now, trying to make a plan based on what may happen in Washington is not something I would advise. I think you need to make a plan as if Social Security wasn't going to be here, because then you're a winner if it's there. And I believe it will be there in some form or fashion. But what it looks like 20, 30 years down the road, that's what we don't really know.
And Phillip, I'm curious, if there are reasons to be concerned about the future of Social Security, I'm sure some of us are, but you don't suggest, like you mentioned, disregarding it, then what should people do if they still have a little concern about it but aren't sure what to do? What advice do you have for them? What should those people do?
I would say the key is going to be have a plan that uses it, but does not rely entirely upon Social Security. So pulling that off involves some serious forethought, carefully planning and utilizing strategies for you to help maximize Social Security in ways that are right for you in the planning process. Social Security is a big deal, and we want to make sure that we utilize it as much as we can. Danielle, that's for sure.
That's right. And the key is, like you mentioned, Phillip, to have a plan that uses but does not rely entirely upon Social Security. So pulling that off does involve some serious forethought, careful planning, and utilizing strategies for you to help maximize Social Security in the ways that are right for you. Phillip, as we're coming to wrap up this segment, kind of remind us, if people have questions about their plan, what should we do?
Well, it's simple. The core retirement design helps answer some of those plans. But I want to point out a couple things before we close out this segment, Danielle. And I think it's because we've talked about an important aspect of retirement, and that's Social Security. I want to remind folks of what that looks like in 2024. The average monthly benefit for Social Security in 2024 is a little over $1,900 a month. That's a big number. Mm-hmm. That will add up to well over $600,000 in a 30-year retirement. And if it's you and a spouse, we're talking about 1.3 million. So it's nothing to sneeze at. We need to make sure that we are looking at that and taking that into consideration. And making sure that if you're going to retire in the next 5 to 10 years, that we access that and we know what it's going to look like. When are we going to take it? How much are we going to get? What do those things look like? These are important things, Danielle, when we look at retirement planning. And again, that's why I developed the core retirement design to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of and looking at those aspects of retirement. Risk. So many people have too much risk in their portfolio. Taxes. I can't tell you how often we sit down with folks and they're just paying way too much in taxes, not just today, but over their lifetime. And then making sure they know where their income is going to come from. That's the core retirement design. Folks, let us help you design the retirement you always dreamed of. It starts with an analysis call. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis, where we'll walk you through our process and help you determine if you are on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. Again, that number is 863-877-1188.
Call that number 863-877-1188. There's no cost or obligation to speak with them today. Stay with us. We're going to continue this conversation coming up. We'll be right back.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you are paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 270-201-7080. That's VISIT to 270-201-7080.
Are you swimming in outdated financial documents? Do you have a shoebox full of random paperwork you no longer need? It's time to round up all your old bank statements, tax forms, and never-ending pile of receipts and bring them to the Statler Financial Services Annual Shred Day, which is Saturday, October 19th from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at the First Baptist Church, located on the corner of East Center Avenue and Mango Street. Plus, we will have our friends from Heartland Food Bank on location, and they'll be available to collect any food donations you may have. Please note, only paper products will be accepted. We will not accept any plastic, metal, or cardboard. For information, call Statler Financial Services, 270-201-7080. That's 270-201-7080. Statler Financial Services Annual Shred Day, Saturday, October 19th. We'll see you there.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Welcome back into the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, alongside Phillip Statler, Statler Financial Services. We're here to talk to you now about taxes in retirement. You know, many people assume that their taxes will go down once they stop working. While this might be true for some of you, for many, taxes could actually become one of your biggest expenses in retirement. Phillip, why do so many people underestimate their tax liability in retirement?
Well, I think a lot of times people think that because they retired, they're going to spend less money and they're going to need less money. And what we have found is that that's not necessarily true. Actually, when people stop working, they want to do other things, right? They have hobbies that want to they want to enjoy, they want to travel. And so those things actually keep expenses relatively high, pretty consistent with what they used to have when they were working. The other thing is that one of the places that most people take income from in retirement, because it's where most of the money's been saved, is in their 401k or their IRAs. And so what happens is that money, nobody's paid tax on that money. So it's 100% taxable. Another thing that people think, Danielle, is that, hey, my Social Security is a tax-free benefit. Well, for some people, that may be true. But for most of us out there, that is not going to be a fact. Most people are going to pay some tax on their Social Security. As a matter of fact, it can get as high as 85% of your Social Security can become taxable. And people don't figure that into the process when they start taking money out of their retirement accounts. And then there's obviously fewer deductions in retirement than what there were when you were working.
You know, understanding these tax realities is really crucial for retirees, Phillip. So how can unexpected taxes in retirement impact even someone's overall financial stability and planning?
Well, I think one of the things that we need to look at is when we're talking about taxes in retirement is that you have to realize that that money that's sitting in your 401k or your IRA, it's not all yours. Part of it's Uncle Sam's. The problem is we don't know how much is going to be his until we file our tax return. And so it can be a problem when we take out too much. It can really push us into a higher tax bracket. And so, Uncle Sam ends up being our partner in those accounts. And the other thing we look at is that your money, because you're having to pay taxes, might not last as long because you have to pull out more to pay the taxes. I have clients that, hey, look, I need 10 grand. Well, that's what they need. So we have to bump that number up to compensate for the tax liability that's going to come along with it. And typically that's going to be 20%. And so that gets to be a huge deal. The more and more money you take out, the higher your taxes are going to be. And then this is one I think a lot of people don't really think about, Danielle, is that when your spouse passes away, the surviving spouse's income often will fall because they lose some Social Security benefits. But get this, their tax rate will actually increase due to now not filing jointly, but filing single. And so that puts them in a higher tax bracket. And then for the other folks out there, because the Secure Act was passed, it eliminated our ability to stretch out your IRA. Used to be you could stretch it out over your lifetime. Now that's not the case. If you're not a spouse, then you have to take the money out of that inherited IRA by the end of the 10th year. That can be a huge tax bill that you're laying on your beneficiaries without even knowing about it. Folks, this is all why I created the Core Retirement Design, to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. We look at three key aspects when we head into retirement. One is risk. How much risk do you have in your portfolio versus how much risk should you have in that portfolio? What I find is about 60% of the folks out there have too much risk in their portfolio. About 20% don't have enough risk in their portfolio. And there's about 20% or so that have it just right. Don't assume that you're in that 20% that have it right. Get a plan. Make sure that you are in the right spot. The second thing we look at in our Core Retirement Design is taxes. We want to make sure folks are paying the least amount of taxes possible in retirement. And the third aspect of our Core Retirement Design is designing an income plan for you to make sure that your money lasts as long as you need it to. Folks, to get started with your Core Retirement Design, give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
If you have any questions about your own retirement plan or even taxes specifically, do not hesitate to give Phillip and his team a call. That number again is 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Phillip, it's easy to see why so many retirees could be caught off guard, especially by taxes. But is there really anything that people can do to reduce their tax burden in retirement?
Well, there are, but here's the deal. Tax preparation is like a Band-Aid. It focuses on saving tax dollars for this year. And that's great. But here's what I got to say, is that tax planning, it's the long game. Mm-hmm. It's not a short game. Consider your entire retirement journey and making decisions now, not for today, but to have the most tax efficient retirement throughout all of those years. So the goal of tax planning is to help you maximize your retirement income and the legacy you leave behind to your beneficiaries, all in the process of eliminating and minimizing as much as we can when it comes to your tax burden.
Phillip, most people believe that taxes are incredibly complex and, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by all the rules and regulations. So could you do something like a retirement tax assessment for us so people can understand?
Absolutely. It's one of the things we do at Statler Financial. It's part of our actual Core Retirement Design. I made sure that it became the one of the legs of that whole stool is tax planning, because we want to make sure that folks pay the least amount of taxes possible in retirement. And it takes planning. It takes the ability to look forward and to know that, hey, I think taxes are not going to be lower in the future. They're going to be higher in the future. And we need to make some changes in order to make that happen. I mean, when I look at the whole situation of taxes, I can't imagine them being any lower than what we see today, Danielle.
That's right. And I know navigating taxes in retirement can really be tricky because there are many potential pitfalls. So let's go into even what are some common mistakes that you would say many people make when they're trying to manage their taxes in retirement, especially on their own?
Well, I think a lot of times it comes back to remembering that your IRA or your 401k is not all yours. You got to share it with Uncle Sam. And one of the big mistakes I see all the time is that folks are going to retire and then they're going to pay off all their debts because they're going to take a big chunk out of their 401k or their IRA to pay off all that stuff, which sounds good in theory. But what happens is it bumps people up, sometimes not just one tax bracket, but two tax brackets. So now, instead of being in that 12% tax bracket, they're in like a 24% tax bracket. They've doubled the amount of taxes they're going to pay in retirement. And so I think that's one of the big things, is that making sure that when you decide to pull money out, that you're really and truly looking at all the repercussions, because that has to be one of the biggest things I see. And just a little caveat here is that, and we don't think about this at all either, when it comes to the Affordable Health Care Act, if you're not on Medicare and you're covered by the Affordable Care Act and you take out too much money, guess what? You have to pay back that credit that you got for your health insurance. Folks, that can be devastating. I have seen people have to pay back tens of thousands of dollars because they took too much out of their retirement account. And you have to take $1 too much and you have to pay it all back. This is why planning is so important when it comes to taxes in retirement. It's a big deal. And I think we forget about that. I think the other thing that we look at and we don't think about a lot when it comes to taxes in retirement is the taxes we're going to pay on our Social Security. We forget that we might have to pay some tax on that money that we got. We assume that it's going to be tax-free money. And that's just a bad assumption. We don't know how much tax we will have to pay on our Social Security. Maybe it's zero, but very likely it's going to be somewhere between 50 and 85% of your Social Security is going to end up being taxable. Folks, all of this to say, the reason that I created the Core Retirement Design was to help people with taxes, with income, and with risk. Give us a call at 863-877-1188 to schedule your Core Retirement Analysis. It's simple. It's a 30-minute phone call where you and I will discuss where you're at currently, what you're doing for retirement, and how close you are to retirement. And we'll determine if you're on the right path. If you are, great. If you're not, maybe I can give you some key elements that you can tweak in your own plan to make sure that you get the retirement you always dreamed of. Again, to schedule your Core Retirement Analysis, it's 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188.
If you have any questions about your own retirement plan or even taxes in retirement, this is your opportunity right now to schedule a call with Phillip and his team by calling that number 863-877-1188. Again, that number is 863-877-1188. You know, with growing concerns that tax rates will rise in the future due to the rapidly increasing national debt and other pressures, now might be the time to be proactive with tax planning. We're going to continue this conversation with Phillip right here. You're listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be right back.
It might ramp up or it could slow down, but inflation never goes away. Do you know how it could impact your retirement savings? Text VISIT to 863-877-1188. That's VISIT to 863-877-1188.
Are you confused by all these campaign promises and political talk? Or maybe even frustrated? You're not alone. Phillip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team keep an eye on proposals made by politicians in Washington and up in Tallahassee that could impact your retirement. As tax laws change and programs like Social Security and Medicare are updated, it's important to have a plan that can help protect your future. Your money needs to last beyond election cycles and presidential administrations, and Phillip and the team at Statler Financial Services can help you figure out the potential impact on your plan with their election stress test. They'll help you create a plan to navigate changes in our economy and within our government, no matter who's in the Oval Office or the State House. To schedule your stress test, call or text ELECTION to 863-877-1188. Call or text ELECTION to 863-877-1188.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor.
Having that financial and healthcare power of attorney set up is huge. The power of attorney is going to take care of you while you're here alive, and that's why I think it's ultimately important that you get those things taken care of.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
You know, interest payments on the ballooning national debt now exceed every other individual budget item except Social Security. Given the expected continued growth of government debt, many believe that it's reasonable to conclude that tax rates will rise in the future. Welcome, everyone, back to the Statler Financial Radio Show. We are continuing the conversation here with Phillip Statler of Statler Financial Services about tax planning and what to keep in mind. So, Phillip, what do you think about this? Given the expected continued growth of government debt, what do you think? What should we keep in mind with possible tax raises in the future?
Well, I think we have to realize that government spending is definitely out of control. No matter who gets elected or what the parties are in the White House or in Congress, they cannot control their spending. And so that means taxes are probably going to go up. Now, it's really not a guess. It's just math. They like to spend money. It doesn't matter who's up there. The other thing I want you to remember is Social Security and Medicare are projected to become insolvent in less than 10 years. Now, folks, if folks can't get their Social Security and Medicare, what do you think is going to happen in this country? There's going to be a huge revolt. So believe me, they are going to get that solved before they become insolvent, which means you and I are going to pay more in taxes in order for those benefits to go out. Think about this as well. By 2030, 20%, that's 1 in 5 Americans, will be over the age of 65, putting an increased strain on our federal and our state budgets. And then remember, the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act legislation, referred to usually as Trump tax cuts, they expire in 2025. That means at the end of next year, they're gone. 2026, we go back to the old rules, the old tax rates. Folks, I don't think people have really made the calculation of what that's going to mean to them when it comes to their tax bill. But all of these things are reasons why taxes are going to go up. And well, we already know in 2026, they're going to go up unless something gets done. And I just don't see that happening, Danielle.
You know, Phillip, it certainly seems that there are compelling reasons to expect that tax rates could increase in the future. But Phillip, how might these tax increases, how could these impact individuals who have stopped working or they're now retired as well?
Well, again, retirees, where are they going to get their money from? You know, they get their Social Security and maybe they get a pension, but typically they're going to take money out of their retirement accounts to cover their expenses. Well, every time we take money out of a retirement account, Uncle Sam is there. He's a partner. He wants his share every time you take money out. And the issue is we don't know how much he's going to want until we file our tax return. So because we have that increasing tax burden, we have a potential of depleting our savings faster than what we would have without those higher taxes. The other thing we look at is that, everybody's savings is in tax deferred accounts, IRAs, 401ks, and the larger withdrawals to pay taxes leads to even higher taxable income. Most people will call and say, hey, I need $5,000. I need $10,000. That's not the gross amount. That's what they need in their account. Well, now you got to tack on the tax, whether that's 15%, 20%, 25%, whatever tax rate they're in. So that increases the amount of money we have to take out of those accounts. The other thing we look at is higher tax rates mean that Social Security benefits being taxed at a higher rate. That's a big deal. And then higher taxes could also affect our ability to leave a legacy to our heirs, as more and more money will be needed to cover just the sheer minimum tax liabilities that we're going to have.
Phillip, in the previous segment, we briefly discussed the importance of integrating tax planning within a person's overall retirement plan. So now can you discuss some specific tax management strategies that we could incorporate into such a plan and keep with us the rest of our lives?
Absolutely. The IRS tax code, it's a rule book that, if correctly followed, can potentially lead to several opportunities for some long-term management of taxes throughout your retirement. Remember, there's no silver bullet when it comes to taxes. And anybody that tells you there are, be very cautious. So here's some things that you can do. Diversifying taxes by spreading retirement savings across accounts with different tax treatments. So that means that you're going to have your IRAs and your 401ks, but you're going to have your non-qualified accounts. Non-qualified accounts get taxed as you take money out. And so you want to make sure that you've got those diversified across all aspects. Secondly, we want to use tax loss harvesting to reduce the amount of capital gains that you may be subject to. Increasing tax deductions using a charitable trust. Again, it takes some planning, but it can be done. Another area that's very popular, we do it all the time here at Statler Financial, is Roth conversions, making sure that we are maximizing the use of our tax brackets. Man, if you're in a 10 or 12% tax bracket and you're not maxing it out by doing Roth conversions, then you're leaving money on the table. If you're not paying any taxes at all, you're in a 0% tax bracket, and you have a retirement account, you are missing a huge opportunity to convert some of those monies out of your IRA into Roth IRAs where they will grow tax-free. And then the last thing you need to look at, that a lot of people don't use these either, is qualified distributions and using your IRA for charitable donations. And then make sure you're balancing out where you're taking your distributions from, whether that's a Roth or traditional, and limiting how much you have to pay in taxes through that diversification as well. Folks, listen, all of this wrapped up is our core retirement design, where we'll help you design that retirement you always dreamed of. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis.
If you have any questions about this, especially when it comes to tax planning or learning more about different tax strategies, do not hesitate to contact Phillip and his team. Call that number 863-877-1188. Again, that's 863-877-1188. Phillip, it sounds like there are several strategies for managing taxes in retirement, which is a good thing. But how can someone determine which strategy will work best for them?
Well, Danielle, the short answer, it takes planning.
Yeah.
You can't just wait until you retire to start that process. Ideally, you want to start 5 years before you're going to retire to make sure that you've got everything lined up and ready to go. Now, if you are already retired, it's not too late to start that process, but it means you have to sit down with somebody that understands taxes and understands the options that are out there and available to you. That's the thing. There's not a lot of folks out there that have the expertise in the area of taxation. I mean, that's why I'm an enrolled agent. Taxes is my background. I've done taxes for over 30 years. And so I understand the ins and outs of how that works and how to emphasize and to merge those two things together to prepare the right plan for you in retirement.
Do you have any final tax planning tips for anyone that we could take away from today?
Again, I think the number one thing is that to remember that the 2017 Tax Cut and Job Acts expires at the end of next year. And in 2026, we go back to the old rules. And so we do have this year and next year where we're going to be in a lower tax bracket. And I would encourage you to take advantage of this little window we have. Yeah, in 2026, could they change the rules and could they change the law to continue? They could. Will they? Think of how much debt we've taken on in the last 4 years. Can they really afford to reduce taxes? I know you hear a lot of rhetoric out there right now during this election year of how they're going to lower your taxes. Folks, the debt is higher and higher, the highest we've ever seen. The interest payment alone is going to kill us. Folks, we need to be proactive. You need to put yourself in the best position you can be when it comes to taxes in retirement. And again, that's what we do. I mean, that's the basis of our whole planning process is that three-pronged approach: taxes, risk, income. Those are the three things that you really need to focus on when it comes to your retirement and income planning. That's why I developed the Core Retirement Design. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. Our Core Retirement Design is, we're going to look at the risk you have in your current portfolio, and we're going to measure that against your risk number to make sure that the two things line up. Here's what I have found in the past is that about 60% or so have too much risk in their portfolio for retirement. There's about 20% to 25% of the folks out there, they don't have enough risk in their portfolio. And there's 10 or 15% of the folks out there, they've got enough. They've got it right. Folks, please don't assume that you're going to be the one in that 10 or 15%. Because if you're wrong, it could be devastating. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to schedule your core retirement analysis where we'll help you design the retirement you always dreamed of.
You want to take advantage of this offer from Phillip to make sure that you won't run out of money. You may even boost your returns over time. So simply get started today by calling Phillip and his team at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. We like to remind you that you don't have to plan for retirement alone. Phillip and his team are right here with you. You want to stay with us? We have more coming up right after this. We'll be right back.
Needing a second opinion on your retirement plan or to see if you are paying more than your fair share to Uncle Sam? Schedule your complimentary visit today. Text VISIT to 270-201-7080. That's VISIT to 270-201-7080.
Are you swimming in outdated financial documents? Do you have a shoebox full of random paperwork you no longer need? It's time to round up all your old bank statements, tax forms, and never-ending pile of receipts and bring them to the Statler Financial Services Annual Shred Day, which is Saturday, October 19th from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at the First Baptist Church, located on the corner of East Center Avenue and Mango Street. Plus, we will have our friends from Heartland Food Bank on location, and they'll be available to collect any food donations you may have. Please note, only paper products will be accepted. We will not accept any plastic, metal, or cardboard. For information, call Statler Financial Services, 270-201-7080. That's 270-201-7080. Statler Financial Services Annual Shred Day, Saturday, October 19th. We'll see you there.
Sounds like the mailman's here.
It's time to answer questions from the Statler Financial Mailbag.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Statler Financial Radio Show. I'm your host, Danielle J. Martin, along with Phillip Statler. He is the president and founder of Statler Financial Services. You know, Phillip gets questions each and every week about all things retirement. So, Phillip, I decided let's go in and, let's check in with our Statler Financial Radio Show mailbag to go over some common retirement questions. Are you ready to get started?
Absolutely, Danielle. Let's see what we got today.
Okay, let's see. So we're going to dive in. We have one from Bill from Avon Park. He says, I'm about to retire and I'm wondering if I should pay off my home first.
Bill, that's a good question. And it's one that's can be easy to answer, but let's talk about it from this standpoint. When we talk about paying off our house, a couple of things we need to know first that I don't have in front of me. And that is, what is your current interest rate on your home? And how much longer do you have to pay it off? And that would be a big deal. And so we would look at that. And then secondly, do you plan on staying here for the rest of your life in retirement? That's something we need to know to understand if that makes sense or not to pay off your house. Typically, though, I would say that if you're paying 3% or less on your mortgage, or even 3.5%, then you probably want to keep it, because typically you should be able to earn more than that in terms of investment. Even CDs right now, you think about, are paying more than that. So there are ways that you can make more than that. You definitely want to keep the mortgage and not take your hard-earned money and pay it off.
Really good insights there, Phillip. And Bill, thank you so much for your question. Okay, Phillip, let's see who's next. We have one from Scott from Lake Passett. He says, I've been hearing a lot about Roth IRAs. I'm wondering if I should do a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. Good question.
Good question. Hey, Scott, hold just one second. I want to go back to the other question. It just dawned on me one thing real quick. If you are planning on taking money out of a 401k or an IRA to pay off your home, a lot of times that is not a smart move because of the tax consequences. So I just wanted that just came to me as I was finishing up answering that question. So, all right, Scott, let's talk more about taxes, right? As we move into whether we should do IRAs or Roth IRAs. And a lot of that is, what tax bracket are you in? I'm a firm believer. I personally use Roth IRAs. And I'll tell you why, because I feel like right now, we are in the lowest tax brackets that we're going to see, probably in my lifetime. I doubt that we'll see anything lower over my lifetime. So I'm putting money in Roth IRAs. And so I think that makes a lot of sense based on where tax rates are going to go. Now, there are some things that I think people can also start to think about when we're talking about traditional and Roth IRAs. A lot of people have money in their 401ks. They're going to roll those out to their IRAs when they get ready to retire. It's not a bad idea to start running some numbers to see, does it make sense to do some Roth conversions? Now, when you do a Roth conversion, they're not free. You have to pay the taxes on that money that you convert from your traditional IRA to the Roth. So think about that. If you say, I'm going to move $25,000 from my traditional IRA to my Roth IRA, right? I'm at a 10% tax bracket. Well, I can expect I'm going to have to pay at least $2,500 in taxes on that transfer. That may even push you into a higher tax bracket, which would push you up even higher. So you have to run the math. It's one of the things that we do in our core retirement design is run through a whole Roth scenario to see what the timeline would look like for folks. Because it also affects taxability of Social Security. If you do too much, it can make your Medicare premiums higher. There are all kinds of landmines out there that you got to be aware of when we start talking about Roth conversions, Danielle.
Phillip, I know a lot of retirees have questions about this, so definitely don't hesitate to give Phillip and his team a call at 863-877-1188. Again, that's 863-877-1188. Phillip, thank you for those insights. Okay, let's dive into our mailbag again. We have another question from Dan and Sally from Sebring. They say, I'm tired of being a landlord on my properties, but I'm not sure if I should sell them. So what are some of the pros and cons to renting out property as a supplement for retirement income?
Well, I would say let's start with the first part of your question here, because here's the deal. I kind of agree with you. It's easy to become tired of being a landlord. I was one for a while, and I don't think I'll ever be one again. It can be a problem, and I get that.
Right.
But here's what I want you to think about. Is the property paid for? I mean, I probably have more questions that need answers than before I can really tell you what direction to go. But here's some things to think about. Is the property paid for? If there's no mortgage on the property, then it's pure, rent money coming in. Granted, you still got to pay property tax, you got to pay insurance, and obviously you got to maintain them. But it would be nice to know, if they're paid for, that poses one issue, because rental income is a nice cash flow. Right. It's good. It's got good taxability. It's, it can be not all taxable. So because you got depreciation of the house. So there's some neat things there that you can do with real estate. Obviously, when you sell it, you have to think about the capital gains you're going to have to pay. What's that going to look like? What's it going to put you in a different tax bracket? How's that going to affect the taxability of your Social Security? I've had people sell property and all of a sudden their Medicare premiums skyrocket because that's income. And it plays a role in the how much they have to pay in terms of Medicare Part B premiums and how much of their Social Security ends up being taxable. So it's not just a simple, should I sell them or should I keep them? If you're tired of the landlord deal, there's always a management company. Hire a management company. Let them manage it. Let them take the headaches. It costs you a little bit of money, but if there's no mortgage and they're positive cash flow, that might be the answer to your question there, guys. Take a look at that.
Yeah, it definitely seems like we need a little bit more information. But Dan and Sally, we definitely appreciate you entering your question. And it's a great opportunity that we got to answer it here on the show. Okay, next question comes from Jane from Sebring. She says that I've heard that when you delay Social Security, your benefits grow at 8%, which sounds pretty good to me. So should I just let my Social Security grow since it's a sure thing?
Well, yes and no, because I don't know your exact circumstances. So it's hard to say, yes, that's the thing to do. Here's what I will tell you, though, Jane, is that you are correct. If you wait past your normal retirement age, which is for most of us 67, then you'll get an 8% increase in your Social Security for every year you wait past 67. Now, the opposite is also true. For every year that you take money out or start drawing Social Security before you reach that full retirement age, you lose sometimes even more of that. It can be 10% that you can actually lose that Social Security benefit. So, I say that it's part of our income planning process is we have everybody get us a copy of their Social Security statement. And it's easy to do. Just go online to ssa.gov and pull your own Social Security report. I mean, I did it just a couple weeks ago to see where I'm at, see where my wife is, and so that we can start looking to see what does that look like for us down the road. And it gives you what your Social Security will be at 62, what it's going to be at 67, what it'll be at 70. And so that's important things to know when you start the planning process. And again, that's why I created the core retirement design, and the income portion of that is really to help you determine when's the best time to take Social Security.
That's right. And Phillip, we're going to spend a little bit more time on that core retirement design at the end of the show. Let's get to one more question from Joyce from Zolful Springs. She says that I've had this life insurance policy for a long time, but now that I'm retired, do I still need it? Great question, Joyce.
It is a great question. And again, unfortunately, I have to say it depends, right? It depends on your circumstances. If you've got sufficient retirement assets, then maybe you don't. But there are some in some life insurance policies that actually will provide, if they have cash value, they may actually provide a retirement income for you. So we need to take a look at that aspect as well. Some life insurance also has long-term care benefits. So we need a little bit more information to really understand if it makes sense for you to get rid of that life insurance policy. Typically, in retirement, folks don't need it, but a lot of times you're to the point you have a paid up policy anyway, or close to paid up policy. So, it makes sense to give tax-free money to your beneficiaries, because life insurance will be tax-free to your beneficiaries. And so that's a key component that a lot of people forget about, is the taxability or the lack of taxability on life insurance policies. So that's a good benefit to have.
Phillip, I know many retirees have questions about all of these different topics that we're talking about today. And with the remaining time that we have, I want to spend a little bit more time on this core retirement design that you and your team have crafted, specially and specifically for retirees. Tell us what's inside.
Absolutely, Danielle. So our core retirement design, we worked hard to build this out. And so it starts with risk. How much risk does your portfolio have? And how much risk should it have based on your risk tolerance, your risk number on a scale of 1 to 100? Where do you land? How close are you to retirement? What's your age? And so those things all go into consideration to determine how much risk you should have in your portfolio. And I will tell you this, Danielle, of all the folks that I've met with, I'm going to say probably 60% of the folks I meet with have too much risk in their portfolio. There's another almost 30% of the folks out there who don't have enough risk in their portfolio. So there's people that don't have enough. And there's about 10% of the folks out there that have about the right amount of risk in that portfolio. So the second thing we want to look at is taxability. What do taxes look like in retirement? We want to do our best to reduce your long-term tax obligation for you, your spouse, and your beneficiaries. So we look at that component. And then lastly, we look at income, because income creates a confident retirement. And so we have developed a written retirement income plan that shows us here's where the money's going to come from. Social Security, pension, and here's the amount we have to make up. Here's what it looks like. Here's where it's going to come from. We look at buckets and what bucket money's coming from when. That's our core retirement design. When it's all put together, folks are confident about their retirement. Give us a call at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188 to start with your core retirement analysis.
Phillip, I always appreciate our time together. You always make retirement planning sound so easy, so thank you again for your time today. Now, if you have any questions about retirement, again, do not hesitate to call Phillip and his team at Statler Financial Services. They are here to guide you through a successful retirement. Again, do not hesitate to call Phillip and his team at 863-877-1188. That's 863-877-1188. Now, thanks again for tuning into the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll catch you next week.
Advisory services offered through Second Half Financial Partners, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced and information provided in this material are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what investments are appropriate for you, please consult with a financial advisor. Second Half Financial Partners, LLC does not provide tax or legal advice. Please consult your tax or legal advisor regarding your particular situation. This radio show is a paid placement.